Okay, we'll get ready to get started. I'll make the door close.
Ever since, had to be for programs. Give them a new life. In this new life, finding live as naturally as possible. Even hunting for their typical rare wild.
Okay, this is not too bad. Okay, now, when we ended on Tuesday, and both, remember I had taken, I uploaded what I'd done in Section 8 because I had a meltdown from the tech demons were loose Tuesday. Anyway, we stopped and we were still working on XLS 10, and so I'm going to open this up for you, okay? And let's take a look at this. And if you open up the resources file, we had covered the Blue Sky Computers. That was that company, and we looked at we used the VLOOKUP and the SUMIF, and that was the accounts receivable problem. And so we worked through it. Now, I want to continue, and what I want to do is work with these three files that are from the textbook. Now, again, and I say this almost every week or every time we have a case, I'm doing two things. One, I'm providing you just a case from an old set of cases I worked on for years ago, and I've tweaked them over and over. So it kind of gives you a fuller effect or picture of the business problem. In this case, it's receivables, and then some of the other work, like with date math, lookup functions, SUMIF, etc. So this is a more full-blown, but you don't have the benefit of an important thing, and that's the textbook that would go with it. It's out of publication, even ceased to exist long ago. So I also have a textbook case for you here, and we'll go over here and I'll grab this. And if you look at Vital Source, we're going to start with this is the one that's on chapter 21. So I'll go back into the textbook, and we'll go over there, and we'll come down to chapter 21. And this deals with the SUMIF and the average if functions, okay? Now, one of the reasons I want you to have this textbook and these other cases is simple. It gives you a lot more context to work with. And in that event, you then can follow step by step. You can see what the case is about, what they're talking about. You've got the narrative there. And in this one, as we're in chapter 21, we're looking at this first page here, and it's the first page in chapter 21. And we have this company, and we're given a series of questions that our boss wants us to answer or has requested. It's more like a report. They want to know the total dollar amount of merchandise sold by each person, how many units were returned, what's the total dollar amount of sales in or after 2005, etc. Now, the case that we're going to look at and that deals with this, they've got this here in figure 21.1, okay, and they show us the file, and then they walk us through some of the procedures. So I had downloaded those files already, and that first one, it's called Makeup 2007. So you want to look in the chapter 21 practice files, and there's those files, the Excel content companion. You want to use that, and then go to that makeup file. Now I have it here, and
which of our textbooks was that you were looking at?
The textbook is that we've been working on is the one this is the Winston textbook. This is the one on Excel modeling. The green one. Yeah. Now I've got mine online. Okay. I bought I bought a copy and used online. You may, if you have a physical copy, fine. They are supposed to be duplicates. So if you're at the start of chapter 21, you should see that file. And the file that we're working with is that makeup file. Now here's the resources again. And it's makeup 2007. Now I took a copy of that and I downloaded it over to my space. Okay. And here we are. And let's open this up and we'll take a look at it. Now, I'm going to get rid of I want to clear the filter, and it's not going to let me clear the filter. So now let's start with some of the formulas here. Okay. And let's go to the name manager. Now I've used the name manager and I've set up the date, the dollars, the name, etc. In fact, what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to destroy this and just start over. It's not going to take me. I'll just get another copy. So this is out of chapter 21. And it was the makeup file. That was a practice file. Yeah. It'll take me but a minute, because I want to work with a fresh one here. So open it up. There we go. Thanks for hanging on here, and I'll copy that, and then I'm going to paste it. I'm going to replace the file in the destination. So I'm going to get rid of that old one, and now I have the new cop. I have this one, I think, unless I just threw that. Nope, that's the old one. Here's the new one. I'll open this up for just a second to see if I did any. No, good. Got a fresh copy. And so away we go. Thanks for hanging on here with me. Now, I'm going to delete this. Now, while we're doing this, don't forget that for XLS10, you can upload one of the following. You can upload this blue sky, the blue sky case, the one that we did Tuesday. Okay. You can work on Makeup 2007. You could upload that, which we're going to work on. You could upload the lookup. That's out of chapter 3. Or the lookup template, which is out of chapter 3. The lookup template, we'll look at it real briefly. It's a template designed for us to be able just to throw some numbers in there and get some results. And frankly, I look at it, I don't think it's that much. But any one of these 4 you can upload, okay? Or anything that I've got loaded over there in the module. So we're working on 10 now. Again, not to confuse you, but we're working ahead on the cases, okay? And as I said, we're kind of front loading all of this. All right, I'm going to open up the makeup. And in the textbook there, they give us a whole series of questions to answer. And for example, well, I'll pop this back up here for a sec, okay? And one of the cases that they give us, one of the questions is, what is the total dollar amount of merchandise sold by each salesperson, okay? So the typical kind of question for a report, and they want to know, okay, how much have you sold? Well, all right, I'm going to save this now because it's in a read-only state. My PC, my desktop, and I'm going to put a copy of makeup, Harmon 10. All intents and purposes, then put it there on the desktop and save it. Okay. Now, as we walk through here, we'll see that we've got a couple of tables of data. We really have 2. We've got this business over here with the dollar volume and all that bit. And then over here we have a record of transactions. Now, if I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there's 1,900 of them. There's a bunch. Yep, there they are. Now, one of the beauties of the name manager is once we've declared an area, a range, or a cell, and we'll go back to formulas, then it makes it much more easy or palpable for us to work with that. And you're going to see that as we use the SUMIF function. Okay? So we've got some areas here like date, dollars, name, product, transaction number, the units, and you'll see the values and then what it refers to, and then the scope. And that's, in this case, it's the workbook. All right? Now, before we go too much further, and we see this these series of questions, i.e. business problems, someone's wanting some information. Data are no good until I turn them into information. So I'm working with this, and now I have the syntax for the SUMIF. And let's look at that. The range. It's the range of cells that you want to evaluate with a criterion. So we're using Excel like a database. As you've heard me say before, the holy grail for everybody is an application that gives me all the advantages of a database and all of the advantages of a spreadsheet combined in one thing. And there are some hybrid products out there that are kind of close, but not yet. So we've got the syntax here, and the SUMIF, it's the range. The criterion, it's the number, date, or expression that determines whether a given cell is added. This is a conditional statement, okay? And then the sum range, that's the range of cells where the stuff is that you grab to add. It's as simple as that. Now, the sum if s means I'm dealing with multiple criteria. The average if is I grab it and I throw it into an average, it compute an average, or if I use the average if s, I'm working with multiple conditions before I average something. Now, the authors are pretty good about walking you through some of this and giving you some of the verbiage around it, but I really do believe, and this is why I use the cases, that you really can't see it until you're out there out in the sticks with an Excel file. You mano. Okay, let's look and see. Take a look at cell B5. Now it says equal sum if name A5 dollars. Click in the formula bar. That's the first thing I do when I try to reverse engineer or figure out what somebody's done. I've learned a long time ago that constructing these is, especially when you start to move to something fairly complex like this, you really want to sit down and work through almost like a storyboard of what you want to have. In this case, we're going to use the SUMIF function, and we're going to use the name range, and that's there all in the blue in column H. I'm going to evaluate it on the basis of A5, and A5 is Emily. Okay? And then I'm going to evaluate it, and then I'm going to the thing I'm going to grab and add up if the criterion met is over there in the dollars column or dollars range. Got it? Say it can't be this easy. Yes, my friends, it is. I can tell you there's about 200 to 300 functions in Excel, if I'm not mistaken. I've been working with it since it was invented. And I'm just going to tell you the truth of the matter is this. You'll often find something that someone has done so much better than you could ever dream. Take it and use it. Okay, make sure it doesn't have any make sure it's not corrupt or anything like that. But if you see it, and there are some great sources out there, I've identified those for you if you're doing spreadsheeting. One of them, is, of course, is the help function that Microsoft Excel provides you here. The second would be the Easy Excel. I've got a link out there to that where they will show you just about anything having to do with Excel and you want to do something with it. They have examples, videos, etc. And then YouTube itself is filled filled with all kinds of people showing you all types of ways to use Excel. Help is out there, and you can find it, okay? Now, we've got, so far we're using a conditional statement, and we're using the and we're using the sum if. What we've done is we've taken two functions together, sum and if, and we call it the sum if. We've got the name, which is the column, okay? And so you can see that, and that's where, and that's the criterion, all right? That's where that's the criterion range, excuse me. The criterion is A5, Emily. And then the sum range is over there in dollars. Well, in English, it's anytime we see the name Emily, we add it up. We put it into a running total. And when we run out of range, we get a total. Well, here we are. Now, it's always important to understand that any good software application gives you a series of views or looks. If you look down in B5, what you're going to see is an output, a result set, a result view. And if you look in the formula bar, what you're going to see is if you look in the formula bar, what you're going to see is underneath the hood. How do I get that result? When we work with Access, and we'll have a few Access cases, you'll see that we have when we run a query, there are three views. One is what we call the data set view, that is the results. Then they'll have a design view, and then you'll have an SQL view, which is the code itself. Fair enough? Okay. Now, the other thing that I like to do, and trust me, teaching this, I cover so many functions, and look, I've seen people do such incredible wizardry with the sum if function and make your eyes pop out. And so I always go in this with a thing and say, first things I look at, I click in the formula bar, and then I look at the function arguments, what we call dialog box. This will give you the range, explains what it is down at the bottom, okay, the criteria, and then the sum range, and that's that dollars column, that array of cells. And it gives you those figures, and it shows you, and then it gives you the sum. Now, again, if you're going, I don't understand, you can click on help on this function, it'll help you. Okay? Now, the other side of the spreadsheet over here, we've got transaction numbers, names, dates, products, units, and dollars, okay? Now, that's pretty simple. Nice set of data, a nice column, and it's organized as you'd think it was, the transaction. It's organized in a serial fashion, S-E-R-I-A-L, meaning it's organized in a way as things occur. So we've got a list of these transactions, and we just keep a running total. Then we have the date the transaction occurred. Then we have the product that was sold. We have the units, and we have the dollars. Okay? Now, we could, if we wanted, add a column like price price per unit, okay? And we just simply would take the dollars and divide it by the units. And then we could just use the drag and drop and come right on down if we really wanted to see component costs laid out there, but we're not looking at that here. So we want to see, the question is, okay, who sells the most? All right, so we've got this first, we're using the sum if function, And we come down for each of these employees, these salespeople. Okay? Now, as we come over here on the other side, we're going to be able now to start to do some manipulation with the data. But before I do that, I just want to say, okay, I'm looking here at the dollar volume by these salespeople. The next question for me is, all right, I've got some data. What does it mean? I have to try for it to be information, I have to be able to attach meaning to it, and it has to be something that's actionable. So if my boss says, okay, tell me who sold the most, now I'm ready to go. So I'm going to put my cursor over in A4, and I'm going to come all the way down to B13. And I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to click File, Home, and I'm going to do Sort and Filter. I'm going to do a custom sort. Everybody find that? Anybody out there that's having trouble? I'm doing the custom sort. And then I'm going to sort by dollar volume, and I'm going to put it in largest to smallest. And there we go. Now we know who is our top salesperson who sold the most, and then we also know who sold the least. Now this is pretty easy because I've got, I don't know, 10 of these people. If I had 150 of them or 250 of them, that becomes a different critter. So I have to try to find some way, if I want it, I have to try to find some way not only to organize them, but to try to categorize them. So I'm just going to do the simplest way first, and that is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to complete the chart. So let's do this. I'm going to make it look pretty. Come over here to I'm going to put all borders. Here at the top, I'll use some fill. Okay. And if I want to make it look even nicer, I'll do some of the bottom here. Put some fill there. And here at the bottom on A14, put the word total and put it in caps. And then we're going to use the sum function, auto sum, and we're there. Okay? Everybody with me so far? Now, I'm ready to try to evaluate them. Now I have a total dollar of sales for these people. So one of the things I could do is I could try to wash the data up a little bit by using a percentage. Percentage is just simply a ratio. So I'm going to put percent of sales. I put it right over here in C. That's cell C4, and I'll go ahead and put the fill in it. And you say, okay, so now I'm going to do equal. I'll take B5, and I'm going to put a dollar sign in front of B because I want to stay in that column, and I'm going to divide it by the total. And I'm going to make that total, that cell B14, a full absolute reference. So I'll click B4. I'll click on, F4, excuse me. Okay. And then it's just a matter of a drag and drop. Okay. Now it's not too pretty. In fact, it's kind of ugly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and highlight that area from row C5 down to C14. Okay? And I'm going to put it in percentage form. Got it? So I did a little bit of formatting so it communicates to the end user a little better. And this one cell down here, this C14, I'll go ahead and put the fill in it as well. And the percent of cells, I'll put now this helps me try to put these into some kind of attach some kind of meaning to them. Okay? And I'm looking at it, and here I am, I've got the percentage of sales, and I've got folks who are fairly close together. So I'm going to go ahead and do this and it's already in there, but I'm going to increase the decimal just a hair. Okay, so I can see the differences. So I just increase the decimal. Now this isn't, I don't have enough data points here to have some real differentiation between people. Okay, it is, after all, kind of a small little case for us to kind of get our feet wet with it, but I've got to try to make some semblance. I know who sold the most, who sold the least. I don't have any real feeling, okay, of where people would be. Now, I could do something like use the standard deviation, okay, to compute those, and the standard deviation functions over there in the data functions. I could compute the mean and then look at the standard deviation. Let's just do this. I'm going to put in the word average, and then I'm going to compute the average. And it's going to be, and notice the little drop-down menu I get. I get the average. And then it says the average of what, and I'll go ahead and capture these numbers. The average is 11.1. Okay? So I've summarized or aggregated these data a little bit. Now this is sign of boring, I understand. But if these are real people and you're making a decision that might impact their families, it's not boring anymore. So we've got their average. Now, knowing statistics and knowing Gaussian distributions, and we assume these are distributed in the, i.e. the bell curve, I know that about 68% of all observations are going to be either one standard deviation above the mean or two standard deviations, one standard deviation above the mean or one standard deviation below. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put the standard deviation. I'll put standard deviation, and I'm going to click equal, and then I put S, and I'll just scroll down here and look for the standard deviation. Okay. Now you have a dilemma when you see this, because you got the standard deviation of a population or the standard deviation of a sample. It's a little bit of a technical issue. We're going to assume that the sample of data we have here reflects some kind of mythological population. So we're going to click standard deviation of the population, and then it's going to say, okay, find the capture, we'll capture the data, and boom. Okay? Now this is a percentage, and so I know that this is one standard deviation. So if I want to know, and I'm going to call this sigma plus 1, that's going to equal the sum of the average plus the standard deviation. And there we are, 11.9%. Everybody with me? And I want to see sigma minus 1. So this will be sigma minus 1. And that's going to equal the average minus the standard deviation. Now I know that 68% of all observations, if I have a so-called normal distribution, are going to fall within 11.9% and 10.4. So if we wanted to say, is there a cutoff, we're going to say, okay, these people here, 12%, all the way down to 10.5%, that's kind of the pack. I'm going to go ahead and put a blue color in there. The others that don't have color are what we call outliers, overperformers or underperformers. So now we've attached some meaning to this data. We know who is our top performer. We know kind of how the pack falls. And now we've got something to think about. Now, the truth is, folks, as you look through here, we'd also want to look at not only the percentages, we want to look at the dollar values. So you could replicate this same process with the dollar values because the dollar values are not that different. If you were going to make a decision about these people, you'd also have to ask some other questions. Do some of them, if they're selling in a route or they have a territory, does one have an easier territory or route than the other? How long have these people been here with me? What's their tenure? Are there certain products that they can sell in one territory versus another? What would be any kind of an extenuating circumstance that might explain why I have an outlier? That's why if we do this and do it well, if we do it and we do it well, it will generally create more questions than we've got answers. But that's okay. This is a drill down approach that we're using here. Okay? Now, again, I have percentage of sales, a percent of sales. I could look percent of dollar volume, and I could look, if you look at the differences, and I start with Jen and then go to Betsy, etc., you're talking about not a lot of money. Because look at the standard deviation. It's less than one, it's 0.7%. Not much. A few $100. So if I've got to eliminate one of these people, boy, have I got some problems. Now I might have some other things like seniority, etc. But that gets us started on that business problem analysis as we start to do a drill down. Now, we were given some other questions to answer. Let's look down here and they say, okay, well, what units are we, how many units of our product that was sales were returned? We use the sum if again, and I'm going to click on the formula bar. And I'm going to see that I've got the units, and that's the only column I'm working with. And here's what it's saying in English. If I have anything where the unit is less than 0, I add it. Okay? Now that's a little bit confusing until you stop and think for a moment. I have 100 units of something. I sell 10 of them. Okay? And I sell 10 of them. So I have 90 left, right? 90 that I sold. I've got 10 of them left. So while I thought I sold 100, I really sold 10 less. So I've got to subtract that 10 out of there because those are units that were returned. So I've got to take that into account. So that's really, we're just working with that one column there. And anytime we see is anything less than 0. Now, if you want to see one, if you go down there to transaction 15, the foundation, they returned 8 units. You see it? That's on transaction 15. And it's the Zerit, and they sold on the 20th of September. They had 8 units returned. Everybody see that? You come down to transaction number 15, you'll see it. Then we have a negative figure in dollars. Why? Well, when they return it, we refund them. And since we've refunded them, we've lost the sale, we've lost the profits, we've got the stuff back on our shelf or in our warehouse. Everybody see that? Okay. Now, the next one is one of these other questions, and that is, okay, how much have we sold in dollar terms since 2005? Now, look, when you go to work, especially if you're working for a pretty savvy company, your boss will probably kind of have you do a semi-audit of things. Look at these records. Do they look right? Here's how they should look. Look at procedures. Look at data to make sure that if you're taking over for somebody, that for all intents and purposes, if you're taking over for somebody, that for all intents and purposes, okay, you're good to go. And you understand where the bodies are. That's primarily what that's all about. So here we want to say, all right, how much have we sold since 2005? This could be 2006, whatever it is. Let's look at this, and we'll click in the formula bar. Now the date is blue. Okay, that's the date range, and then we have a conditional operator. We have an operator where it's greater than or equal to the date of 2005, and if it's anything that's at January 1st, 2005 or past that, we add it up, and that's in the dollars column, the red. You can see it up here in the dialog box. The range, the criteria, the sum range. Got it? What I did is I clicked on the FX so I could see the dialog box for that cell. And what it'll show me is the range, okay, the criteria or criterion, and then the sum range. So it says anything that matches this date, we want it. We grab it. Then it says, okay, well, what do you want? Well, it's anything before or after January 1st, 2005. Dates are, you remember when we did the case Tuesday where we took the date and we computed the days that the inventory was over, the invoice was overdue. Yeah. A date's a number. And then we have the sum range, and that's out of the dollars. So anything that's equal to or greater than the number that represents what we see as the date of January 1, 2005, add it up. Okay, well, what do I add up? We grab those out of that sum range. And just to show you again, my process on this of drill down is I click in here to get the visual cues. And then I click here to see the function. If I don't understand, I click help. Okay? And so away we go. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
One of the things about working with, working with software, I've learned over, I've been around, I was here when Excel was invented, Access was invented, all of the spreadsheet applications. And one of the things I've learned is, first of all, they all will provide you at least two layers. One is going to be the output, and the other is going to be the formula that produces the output. The second is over time, they give you visual cues. Excel is probably the best at it because it's intended to be used by people all over the world. So if you can see that they give you those visual cues, they give you the dialog box, and then they give you the help on the function if you need the help. But once you click it here, they show you what you're working with. So we've got total dollars sold 2005 or later. Now, we're not given much in the way of how we're given that figure. And why we would want to know that would be the next piece, would be the next question of the drill down. What's 2005 to me? Maybe that's the year that these folks changed their manufacturer. It looks like they sell makeup. Maybe, maybe they changed the locations. I don't know. But there's some meaning that's buried in that date, okay? And so you want to find out what that is, because it's saying, well, really what you have to ask is, okay, well, compared to what? And then that is that next piece of the drill down. When your boss just asks for a blanket set of numbers, requests, all those requests you saw, you can provide them. And then it's a good point to say, I'm trying to, is there anything additional about these that we need to know? You might get surprised because, well, I'd like to see how it compares to 2000, everything from the year 2000 up to the end of 2004. Oh, okay. There's some reason they're interested in 2005. Got me? Yeah, okay. Now, here's one of my favorites. How many units of lip gloss did we sell? Okay. So notice, here we go. We'll click in the formula bar, and you see that the product is in the blue column. The units are in the right column. Now, this phrases something about spreadsheet design that's important. Notice this table is here is set up beautifully. First of all, the transactions have a number, and it's a serial number. It goes each successive transaction. Number two, it gives you some kind of an identifier. Who was involved with the transaction? Number three, it gives you a date. These are dimensions as when we talk about a database. Then number four, well, okay, what product was involved? You'd say, and then number five, how many units did we sell? And number six, what was the dollar value? You say any simpleton would know how to do this. Trust me. Right now, you know more how about to put a spreadsheet together than about 90% of the people you work for or with. Numbers scare people. Spreadsheets scare people. And I don't understand it. I don't get it. Listen, I love math. If I was any good at it, I'd be teaching in the math department, okay? I'm pretty good at stat. That's about it. Otherwise, calc was for me like going to the crucifixion. And I took trigonometry with my football coach in high school, and every time I made below a 70, I had to run stadium laps, so I learned trig very well and then promptly forgot it. Math is one of these things that people get scared by it. I don't get it. Now, So we know how many units of lip gloss we sold, and then we know the dollars sold not by Jen. Okay? And so we know that Jen accounted for 29 grand, and we'll do this, watch this. Sum if the name, and if it does not equal Jen, then we add in the dollars. That's how we can say how much does Jen account for. And what we're really doing is we're kind of putting Jen, who's got the highest sales, in relation to everybody else. 12.1% doesn't, it tells me something, okay? But 29, but when I've got $240,000 of sales, and Jen accounts for when I've got basically $240,000 of sales here in the total, and Jen's 29,000 of them, I can put Jen into perspective, and we're always trying to do that. The rest of these are just simply the same use of the tool. We've got the lipstick dollars by Jen, lipstick units, etc. And you just go through that process. It's very iterative. I look at the formula, I look at the data output, I look at the formula, and then I look for any kind of dialog box or instruction that will tell me what that means or how it works. There are many great spreadsheet applications out there, but I don't think any of them beat Excel. They just don't. And you say, my goodness gracious, you found every single way to use the sum if. Now, in this case, it's the sum if S, because notice something. I've got two conditions, not one. Let's click on that, and I'll show you. We're using the name. That's one condition, Jen. We're using the product, which is lipstick. And then we're using a Boolean operator on dollars either equal to or larger than 100. So we want to see Jen's sales of lipstick where she sold more than $100. So I lied. This is not 2, it is 3 criteria. Curly, Mo, and Larry. Okay. Let me go back up here for a moment. I'll click on the dialog box. Click on the function. There we are. Notice here's the sum range, criteria 1, range, and the criteria 1. Then criteria 2 is product. The criteria 2 is lipstick. And there are 3 here, but I think they just stop. And then they stop it, and they stop at the sum. The sum range, that's the actual sales to sum. Okay, so they've got this. Yeah, they pop the sum range, the third one up at the top. Pardon me. I'm sorry. So we really do just have 2 criteria. I lied. Excel is smarter than me. Let's scroll down here and let's see. No, I'm not. I'm smarter than Excel today. Here's the 3rd criteria. I need to learn how to move this little gizmo down. Yeah, I've been doing this for years, and you can see it's a new experience for me because I teach so many different functions. If I worked in a particular job, I'd be using it. I'd be the master of the universe as far as that's concerned. Okay. Now you can upload this one for you can upload this one for your XLS10, or you can upload the one that we worked on Tuesday. And then we have a couple of, this is not bad. Then we have a couple of wannabes in terms of the lookup XLS and lookup temp. Now, they are over in chapter 3, so I'm going to go back up to the textbook. And notice my textbook, what I love about this is this textbook is really, it's not a textbook, but it's a database. See how easy it is to go find stuff? So if I was in this class and I was taking this course, hey, I'd have my textbook open and questions, and I'd be doing some searches. I bet some of you are already. They walk us through the lookup function. Now, we did the VLOOKUP the other day, but they give us the VLOOKUP syntax, okay? So I'm going to work with lookup XLS. So I'm going to diminish this down, and I'm going to find out the lookup file. And maybe I've got the lookup temp. Here it is. Let me open it up for you. All right. In this case, they're just having you use the lookup function to compute tax rates on income. And they walk you through it. It's okay. It's just so bare bones. The narrative of the text is really what is important, I think, for you to see. Because and the truth is, we went through the VLOOKUP and the HLOOKUP when we worked on that case on Tuesday. But it's okay. The VLOOKUP, it's a vertical lookup, so we look up stuff in a column. Okay, and they say, click here to view the code image. Let's do that. And there it is. Let's talk about that for a minute. This is a code snippet. Anytime you find something you can use and throw into Excel or Access for that matter, you want to do it. But here we are. We've got the range. We've got the VLOOKUP, and we have lookup. Okay, pardon me. The lookup value. Okay, the table range. What table is it from? The column. Okay, the index, and if we have a range lookup, we use it. But the index, remember when we did the VLOOKUP, we had those receivables categorized, and we used column 2. So it would say, under 30 days, or current, 31 to 60 days, 61 to 90 days, over 90. And you can go back and look at that case and see it. So we did the VLOOKUP. HLOOKUP, I've not used HLOOKUP very much, but if I'm not mistaken, everybody who takes account, well, not anymore. Our faculty member doesn't use Excel, who teaches accounting. So, but we have HLOOKUP, and we're just simply working on horizontal. So we have them in a horizontal array versus a vertical array. Again, we're using Excel like a database. When we use the SUMIF, we were using it like a spreadsheet and a database. Okay. These should compute the tax rate. And they show us what the finished product should look like. You can go in and mess with the two of them. I just don't think there's enough detail in there or meat for them to be as meaningful as the makeup file or as the file we worked on Tuesday. I think you got to see it context for it to be really, really, really useful for you. All right, let me stop for a moment. Are there any questions anybody has in here or out there? Yes? No?
None here right now.
Okay. I see none here, and I see none out in the internet land. So I want to do one little bit piece of housekeeping, and then I think we're going to say bye-bye for the week. Okay. For this week, upload week XLS 7 should have already been uploaded. Okay. You have the break-even quiz, the break-even and EOQ quiz. You have the quiz from the few text. I hope as you're doing those quizzes from the few text, which is showing me the numbers, you're paying close attention, because that book, I realize it's very, very large, okay? And it's an excellent thing to have with you in the event that an asteroid should hit the Earth. It might save your life, okay? But I know it's a bulky thing, but it is the gold standard in saying, how do I look at graphically presented data and make sense of them, or find out if they're being fudged or there's an error or something like that, because you're going to be looking at data like that all of the time. Okay? This is not a political statement, so please don't take it as such. But I read that Bastion of Communism, the New York Times. I read it just so I can know what the commies are thinking in case they try to take over my great state of Oklahoma. Once a week I go out to Lake Overholser and I check to see if there are any Russian submarines. You never know. The New York Times talked about the briefings that are given to the president. The president of the United States typically over the years has gotten what they call an intelligence briefing. And that is, they're about to have a revolution in Argentina or whatever, or there's a bad person loose in France. Then over I guess the past 3 or 4 presidents, they started asking for economic intelligence data. How is the country doing? What does their currency look like? What are their major businesses in a failure mode? What's their economy doing? What's happening? Our current president is a guy who likes pictures. And the New York Times talked about the intelligence folks who go in and brief him. And he does his briefings twice a week. And then he likes graphs and charts. Okay? So he's a visually oriented guy. And if you look at the rest of his life, you'd say, yeah, that's pretty much consistent throughout his life. So I'm not making a political statement, but I am saying this. You will find people like him who will say, you got 5 minutes, or let me see the data visually constructed. So that's why I'm having you break your necks through the Stephen Few text. So those are due. And then, of course, we've been working ahead with these cases for the very simple reason that at the end of the course, you're going to have projects, you're going to have the finals to work on. So I'm front loading these. So that's what's coming ahead. And excuse me, pardon me. Week 6, it is so dry. Week 6, you'll have, we've done 9, and we've done 8 and 9, in fact, so you don't really have any exams. And so you'll be ready to enjoy your spring break. So that's where we are right now. Folks, thank you so much. And unless anybody has any questions, I'm going to say that we are done. Any? All righty. Thank you so much.